Hey, William, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Absolutely. And Brian, thank you for having me today. It's a real pleasure. So I've been in sales for about, gosh, 35 years now. Um, it all started, I guess, my first sales experience, not first sales job, first sales experience when I was about 12, 13 years old. I had a paper route. My dad was a lifelong salesperson, and they had a little carrier contest. Whoever sold 20 subscriptions, you get a 13-inch black and white Zenith TV.
There's motivation.
Yeah, so my dad took me out, told me how to work the streets, went out there. Needless to say, I won 6 TVs. So by that time, the route was too big, and I had decided I don't want to deliver the papers. I want to be the guy that sells the subscription. So that was what hooked me at a pretty young age. But since then, like I said, about 35 years of sales experience in a number of different industries, mostly B2B, some B2C. Everywhere from communications to website and intranet development, advertising, all the way into the trucking industry, which is what I'm in today, the trucking and heavy equipment industry.
So you like sales because you get that 6 TVs. I'm sure you sold 5 of them, right? No.
I did actually. I did for a little markup. So no, it was a few things for me when it came to sales. Um, Going back to that 13-year-old, it was a lot better to stand and talk with people, and really have conversations with people than it was to just be all by myself throwing papers at doors at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I enjoyed that. There was a lot of personal reward that came from it. Don't get me wrong, it was financial as well, but there was a lot of other personal rewards. But one of the biggest reasons that I've stayed in sales as long as I have, and actually this question just came up not so long ago at a national sales meeting. It's the only job that I've ever known where I determine my own value, my own worth. I don't have to rely on somebody else to do that. I get to control that myself. And if I want to raise, I just have to figure out a way to make more sales. I don't have to rely on somebody else saying if I'm deserving of it or not. I get to make that determination myself. So that's really one of the big things that's kept me into sales for all these years.
Well, I love that mindset because too many people say oh, my income's limited by the economy and the product and my territory. And there's some truth to that,
Sure.
but you have a lot more control than you're probably willing to admit.
If you're if you're of the mindset that all you have to do is figure it out. Now that sounds really simple, right? But
So
and
simple.
not, but that's the truth of it.
It
No
is.
matter how difficult, that's the simple answer. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, if you can have that mindset and allow it to push you, it'll get you through the rough times.
Yeah, and you brought up a point that I've heard from a lot of salespeople that they went into sales for the variety. That, wasn't sitting at a desk. It wasn't the same thing every day. They have a little bit of control over their time and their energy.
That's
Now,
right.
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And that's great. The variety is good, but variety is kind of the opposite of patterns and habits. How do you keep the patterns and habits going and not get
That's
just chasing variety?
it's a great question. You know, as I said, my father was a lifelong salesperson, and he was a veteran of World War II. He was my dad and my hero. I idolized the man. So he really taught me a lot about sales through my youth, through my younger ages. And one of the things that really resonated with me is that a great salesperson will be able to sell anything. All you have to do is get a little product knowledge and apply your process to that.
Yeah.
So, in essence, what I learned real young and what I've always kind of held true is there's still always a process. It doesn't matter what that variety is. You still have to be able to say, how do I apply this process to this new adventure?
And that's another good point because a lot of sales reps either don't have well, their process is to react to what the prospect wants instead of kind of guiding the prospect
That's
through
right.
the process.
That's right. That's
And
right.
how'd you come up with your process?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
So it's honestly, I would probably say that every lesson I've learned in sales is from a lost sale. And that's just the truth of it. When you're a salesperson, especially if you're commission only, which many of my positions have been, you tend to learn quickly. you tend to learn quickly. So yeah, that process really was trial and error. And then through my years, I just kind of figured out, look, these things apply everywhere. There's some things that I'm going to have to insert. There's some things that I might have to adjust, but the essence of a process is still always there. And that's the important part, not to be boxed in
Right.
to workflows and things like that, but because there's a big difference here. But we're talking about a process that applies right across the board. Like you said, Brian, to be the guide for the prospect, rather than have him lead us, and that's a constant.
It is. And what were some of the lessons that you learned that kind of got you to where you are today?
Gosh, there's been a lot. I've learned that there are a lot very early on, and this is one of the things that I wish I would have learned earlier in my career. Um, I wish I would have understood fully that sales is a craft. It's a trade. It's not just a job title or a position that could lead you somewhere else. It is truly a trade and a craft. And if you think about it, like so many trades that go through apprenticeships, I went through an apprenticeship. We just didn't call it that at the time. But I took a very low paying, and I'll date myself here, about $350 an hour, a low paying clerk job. And that was one of my first exposures to a real sales job. And from there you step up and you start to learn your basic things like features, right? But then as you progress, you start to learn, oh, well, there's features, but there's also benefits, and benefits is really what you want to be talking about. And then later on you learn, oh, okay, well, features and then tying into benefits, that's not just a list, that's actually a conversation.
Conversation,
Right.
yes.
And so that takes some time, so that's one of the big ones that I really wish I would have understood. This is a craft. This is not just a temporary job until I find what I'm really looking for. This is a trade that I'm going to be with, that's going to be with me and stick with me for the rest of my life. And then leading to that, in my younger youth, not understanding fully the importance of a true, honest to goodness conversation versus just a talk, because there's a huge difference there. There's a huge difference. I didn't understand very young about take control of the sale, right? That comes with experience, and it comes by learning, oh, I have to guide my prospect through this process because he doesn't know it, so it's up to me to do that. Of course, and you hear it all the time, I wish I would have learned at a much younger age to shut my mouth. Sales is not about talking, it's about listening, right?
Well,
It's about well-placed questions and then just stepping back and let the customer feel good about what he's about to tell you.
that's it. I did a recent video on the difference between a meeting and a conversation. And sales reps they just love meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And they go through a regiment, but that's not a conversation.
No.
The magic happens when you're talking. And sometimes not even about the product. What's the client do? What's their workflow look like? What do they
That's
like?
right.
What do they not like?
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
all of a sudden it's a natural progression.
Yeah. My success is not determined by a full calendar.
No.
My success is determined by what happens from the conversations. If someone feels good about what just happened, if I've got a prospect on the line that feels good and wants to have more conversation, that's successful right there.
Yeah.
Filling up a calendar, I can do that all day long.
Is that something your dad taught you?
Yeah. It really is. My dad was one of those. He was just one of those good old fashioned salespeople. He was the kind of guy that he worked at one point for a very large printing operation, and those were the days where they had season tickets to the Detroit Tigers, and he would take his clients out to the Detroit Tigers and buy them hot dogs and spend the day with them. And he was always a big believer in developing that relationship and in developing that great communication and an interest to have more conversations and more and more and more.
And that's it. And a lot of people view this incorrectly. I think a lot of people view this as friendship. And it's kind of like friendship, but it's business.
It is.
It's not just to talk. It's not
Right.
about the ball game or the weather. It's whatever they care about.
It is. You know, that really became a big thing during COVID. We were really, really blessed, lucky, however you want to frame that here at Diesel Laptops during COVID, because we didn't miss a beat. In fact, our sales went up throughout that whole process. And for me personally, for the accounts that I take care of, every single one of them, everybody wanted to talk. Everybody was scared, Brian. Everybody wanted to talk about what was on their mind. I had some Canadian customers. They wanted to talk about how tightly things were going on there because it went on for longer. You know, I just so many different customers that just wanted to just kind of pour it out. And you know, it was great because I actually got to sit and listen to so many different perspectives. And they even asked what I felt, and I shared that with them too. So, you know, it was a horrible time, but I think a lot of good things came through it. But most of all, just great conversations. If when you have, it's more than a skill, right, Brian?
It's
It's a genuine interest.
it's a talent, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a
absolutely.
talent that people, skate over or don't want to admit
Mhm.
because they're too worried about, let me discover if you're qualified for me to talk further
That's right.
instead of,
That's right.
but unless you have that ability, can you build trust without having a conversation?
Not really. Not really. I mean, how do you do that, right? You can rely on the reputation of the company,
The
but
company,
that'll take you just so far,
right?
right? Um, my experience is that that may get a phone call, that may get an initial conversation, but it's certainly not going to get me trust. It doesn't matter how many hundreds or thousands of customers I have that are happy. What am I going to do for you? How can I repeat that for you, Brian? And that takes trust on an individual level.
Well, that's it. And I always push it back to like, why do they hire sales people instead of just put it up on the website and charge less?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's
It,
funny. That's actually right there is how I got involved with diesel laptops.
well,
Um, I had actually, I'd been in the trucking industry for a while. I had just really wanted to kind of venture out and start my own consulting business. And I was introduced from one of my customers to Tyler Robertson, the owner of Diesel Laptops. And he had a website where he was selling some more low level diagnostic tools for the trucking industry, but he had recently come across a very high level, very robust software application that could do an incredible amount. And so his question that he had for me is, do I continue to sell everything on the web, or do I need a sales force? And if so, what would that look like? And so that's how I got involved to answer that
oh,
very question.
yeah.
And it was interesting. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, that's it. And I think a lot of companies think they can get away with just the website.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can if the problem's known and the solution is kind of understood and it's a commodity and it's really about price. But that's not what you're about. That's not what the
No,
product's about.
no. You know, the other thing, and it's funny that you bring that up because this has been on my mind quite a bit lately, is that it seems to me that a lot of people, a lot of sales departments out there are kind of switching how they look at salespeople. When I grew up, when you grew up in sales, it was all about a closing ratio, right? Which is akin to a batting average. Today, it seems to be more about a conversion rate, which applies to websites, but it's pretty difficult to apply that to salespeople. It doesn't fit because the only once a website is fully optimized, the only way to increase business is to increase leads, to
Coming
increase
to it,
traffic.
yeah.
So if you apply that to a sales department, the only way to get more sales is to get more people calling. Your loss rate is going to still be the same always. So how do you overcome that? But it's like you said, salespeople, that's what we've always been here for. That's always been, why we're useful to companies, why we can command a higher income, why we can do the things that we do, because we make sales, we build relationships, we have conversations, we make sales.
That's it. And if you go the website route, what are people going to buy? They're going to buy the lowest
Sure.
cheapest thing, and they're going to get it, and they're going to find out, well, this isn't what I wanted.
That's exactly right. We actually, to this day, we still have some customers that'll go onto our website and they'll buy a $12,000 tool and then they'll return it. Because, no matter how much you
Not what
put
they
on that
think.
website, everybody interprets things their own way. So yeah, it just doesn't work when you're dealing with products like this. You need to have that conversation to build that trust. So then when I tell you, Brian, this tool, I've heard you for the past 45 minutes, you've told me what all your pain points are, and I'm telling you this tool right here can fix all of those pain points. Now we have that level of trust to where you're willing to give me that shot.
Right.
Yeah,
And I think that's what people don't understand, is that customers don't really know what they want.
that's
They
right.
have a problem, they want a solution, and they want the cheapest one possible.
That's right.
But they don't want to buy the $12,000 one that doesn't work.
That's right. Well, we get a lot of customers that say, well, why would I buy this $12,000 tool when you have a $2,000 tool here that looks like will do the same thing?
Yeah.
And the obvious answer is no, that's it. There's a
Doesn't do
reason
the
why
same.
that's six.
It does something else.
Right. So yeah, so it's interesting, but yeah, we are the guides. Steve Jobs said it, right? It's most people, just like you said, don't know what they want. It's up to
Mhm.
us as salespeople to listen to them and then to figure out what best applies, to have that consultative approach and then help them understand why it is that that's going to solve all their needs.
And so what was it like when you showed up at Diesel? And what's it like today?
So when I showed up at Dead Diesel the first time that I met Tyler Robertson, he was a true startup in every sense, totally bootstrapped. His warehouse was his garage, which his wife was not happy about. His executive office was his dining room table, and that's where I sat down with him for the first time. Now, keep in mind that this is diagnostic tools. So as I said, these are very robust, very integral tools, high level tools. I came home and I sat with my wife and she said, well, how did it go? And I said, it went great. She said, what is it? And I said, I have no idea, but I'm going to sell a lot of them. That was my answer to her. Yeah, I don't even put air in my own tires. So this was a
A
big
big
stretch
leap.
for me.
Yeah.
Tyler was wonderful. He's always been the kind of guy that if you need to know something, he'll walk you through those steps. He'll really teach you. And without him, I would not have been able to do it. But early on, what I discovered very quickly was that there was a certain way these tools were being sold, and that was in person. And the typical way they were sold is I would go out either through a cold call or an appointment, meet with a shop manager, and I'd be there for 3 to 4 hours. And I would connect to as many trucks as he would have there at his shop to show that this was the right tool. But the problem is, it's a very small number of trucks that you can connect to. That would always lead to a second and a third and a fourth. It was never enough. So the sales process for just a single kit was about 9 months, 6 to 9 months. It was crazy. To make it even more difficult, we faced competition that had armies of salespeople, like Snap-on tools, boots on the ground. So if we were ever going to sell large numbers of our tools, we'd have to match that if we were going to play by those rules. So the conclusion that I came to is we can't play by those rules.
No.
We have to do something different. And so what we came up with, I met with Tyler, and if I had to pick the greatest thing about working with Tyler, it's this. Anytime I went to Tyler and said, if you give me this, I will sell more of your product. He did it every single time. So I went to him and I said, no more field demos. We are going to sell these tools by phone, and you need to give me a 30-day money back guarantee.
Wow.
And he did it. And so what we started to do, Brian, is instead of saying, hey, can I come out to your shop and show you what this tool is like? I would say, Brian, here's the thing. I'm going to sell this tool to you risk-free. You can try it for 30 full days. And if you don't, at the end of that 30 days, if you don't like the color of the laptop, you send it back and get a full refund. And we did it. We also knew that the reasons that those tools would come back was because people didn't know how to use the software and because they didn't have anybody to call for help.
Yeah.
So I told Tyler, if you give me training and you give me support, we'll plug the returns and we'll sell even more. And sure enough, we did. And that just kept escalating. And for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, we just doubled our revenue every year as we brought on more people. After I figured that out, my next task was to find someone else. All it meant is that I could do it. I could sell this way. I got to have somebody else that can do it too.
Yeah.
So I met my dearest friend, David Martin. He came on board, best salesperson I've ever worked with. He just ran with it. Matter of fact, he did better with it than I did. But that he's got 40 years of sales experience. I still haven't proven, can this be done at a person with a little less experience? Found Jeffrey Bowden, found a couple of other people. They came on board, they ran with it. And that's when we knew we really had something. We had a solid process that competed with our competition, but on our terms, not on their terms. And in the long run, it was better for the customer, Brian, because, well, like I said, what's better? Me being there at your shop for 2 hours or you having the tool for 30 days. So that's how we did it.
And is that how it's done? Not with just you, but with all the other reps as well?
It is. To this day, we still use that process. Yeah.
And how long is that initial demo presentation? Is that an hour?
No, we don't even, honestly, most of the time we don't even do a demo or a presentation. The information is on the website. Someone will ask us call us and say, what trucks does it work on? The answer is every truck you have in your shop. They say, what's the functionality? 99% of what the OEM software is. But don't take my word for it. Buy it risk-free. And if you don't like it at the end of 30 days, return it and get a full refund. If some of our larger customers do want a web demo, we'll go ahead and do that. Every once in a great while, I'll go out to a site just to meet someone face to face. Some of our largest customers have bought hundreds, if not thousands of kits from us. So that usually takes a little bit of a face to face. But for the most part, by large, most of our kits are sold just with a fairly short conversation and a willingness based on our reputation now for the customer to say, I'm going to try this out and see if it lives up to what you guys are saying.
And how about as far as their commitment to take the training and make sure they know how to use it and get the value out of it?
Great question. So it's probably split close to 50-50, or at least I would like to think it is. But I know there's a split there. Some people can't wait to take that training and they'll take it as often as they want and they'll call support left and right. And there are others that will say, I don't need training because I've been doing this job for a very long time. So they'll call and they'll say, I want to return this because
it doesn't work.
It doesn't do anything. So our response to that is, did you take training? And if they say no, we say, I tell you what, if you'll just take that training, I really believe that you'll see the value. You bought this tool for a reason. You didn't buy it just to try it out. You bought it because you were hoping you could keep it and use it for years to come. Just give me an hour and a half for our training, go through it, and promise me the next couple of times you run, and I'll extend your return if I need to, but let's just get you trained up so you can truly see the value of the tool. And in almost every case it works. I believe our return rate now, it's either 1 or 2%. So it's extraordinarily low. Yeah.
And what would you have done differently? Do you wish you thought of this earlier? I mean, it's genius, right?
Well, thank you. Now, I hindsight can be a monster, right, Brian?
Yeah.
I truly believe that I got to where I was supposed to be there. I had the right skills. I had everything else. If you gave me that idea 20 years ago in a different industry, I probably would have dropped the ball because I didn't have the skill set developed in order to do it right. When I got with Diesel Laptops, David and I joke about, David has actually coined it his Olympic moment. It's everything that we learned through the years. When we got to Diesel Laptops, we were able to tap into every lesson we've ever learned through the years and put it to work for Diesel Laptops. So it was an extraordinary experience. It still is every day. But what would I change? I don't know that I would. I don't like to go down that road.
Well, how about
Um,
when it's not a match? Because you don't want to sell the wrong product to the
sure,
customer if
sure.
expectations, because I'm sure you're in a space where people think they know a lot,
Mhm.
but they may not know a lot about what you do. That
There
is,
are times, absolutely, and there are times, the highest level tools we sell are the highest ticket items that we sell. They work on pretty much everything in the trucking industry. But there are some people that call up and say, I only work on two different OEMs. Maybe I work on Volvo, maybe I work on Mac, and that's it, which is really one. At that point, we would probably say, well, let's look at a different tool. What kind of functionality do you need? So we really dig in, and this is even to our newest salespeople. At that point, we have to really start to ask questions. We have to consult with that customer. What
yeah,
is it that you're trying to accomplish? What do you need to be able to do in order to see a return on investment for this? And we dig in. So there are times that somebody calls for one of our highest ticket items, and we have to say, I'd love to sell that to you,
but it's not a
but that's
match.
the wrong tool for you. You need to start with this one over here. And if for some reason that's not enough, we can trade it in and get you into something else if you'd
Yeah,
like that better. So there's a lot of ways to it, but customer first, which really I was thrilled about because that really lined up with what I did through the years. In pretty much every position that I was with in sales, it was always customer first. You have to be that way. And just from me as a person, that allowed me to get more reward than just financial. So Diesel Laptops, everybody there, Tyler was perfectly lined up with that. And that's the way it is to this day. Customer first, always.
yeah, cool. Hey,
Has
William,
to
I
be.
really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your company?
I'm on LinkedIn at William R. Ward 1. So that's me at LinkedIn. You can also email me if you like. I've got a separate website set up so we don't bury my Diesel Laptops email, but you can email me at williamrward.com as well for any questions or anything you'd like to talk about. Be happy to do it.